Hi guys, welcome to the podcast. Before we start, we just want to introduce you to our sponsor. Our sponsor is the Twitter handle @MugsNFL. They're a company that offer a range of custom items such as mugs, t-shirts, crewneck jumpers, and hoodies, all customized with your favorite sports player or your sports team. That can be any sport ranging from the NFL through to the NBA to UK sports. All you have to do for an extra 10% off your order is drop them a message on Twitter quoting our podcast, that is the Hardwood Hoops podcast, and they'll get 10% off your next order. Cheers and enjoy the show. Hello, and welcome to episode 14 of the Hardwood Hoops podcast. I'm joined by a very sweaty but excited Ben Jones.
Oh yes, always sweaty, but hardly ever excited. Wait, other way around.
How you doing, mate?
Very well, thank you. Very well, yeah. Like you said, warm, 31 degrees weather here, so I'm trying to hide from it at the moment doing this. What about yourself?
Yeah, all good. Obviously working from home still with all this going on, so the heat is real when it comes to fair. Our office is awful to have aircon, but my house is almost probably warmer than the office, so not ideal. But I've gone to a third floor to record a podcast and just get a bit warmer, so all fun and games. But yeah, we've had another crazy few days, mate, since we last recorded. Have you been enjoying everything, all the games and stuff?
Yeah, it's been a great weekend for the NBA bubble and these sort of pre-playoff 8 games. So lots to talk about. Very entertaining.
Yeah, and you became very famous on Twitter with your watching the bubble from a paddling pool in your garden. Everyone thought that was a good flex.
Yeah, my huge paddling pool. I should send you the picture of it from the side angle that my wife took as she came home. It adds a whole another dimension to it, I think.
We'll have to get that out on Twitter tonight.
Yeah.
Cool. Well, let's head into talk about some of the, I guess, news before we move on to some of the in-depth discussions about some games. So we have been guaranteed a play-in game now, mate. It's official as of yesterday, I believe, yesterday afternoon, that no matter what happens, no matter who wins and loses what games, there will be a play-in game. So we kind of expected that in the West, but it's glad that we got it, really.
Yes, it's going to be a mega bowl. So the teams left in the running for that are Memphis, Portland, Phoenix, and San Antonio. New Orleans, Sacramento are done.
Yeah, they were eliminated after their last 2 losses. I think that was on Sunday, I believe, Sunday or Monday. So yeah, they're eliminated completely. So we're down to a final 4, I guess, as such, which is exciting. It's definitely been the most exciting race as the games have gone on, because a lot of the top teams and playoff-ready teams have already started doing your favourite thing, mate, and resting a few of their players, and the quality of games have reduced over the last 3 or 4 days. Which is a shame, but kind of always going to happen just before the playoffs started.
Yeah, sort of expected, isn't it? You know, those top tier teams are going to be focusing on what's coming next rather than the next 1 or 2 games ahead of them, because almost everybody's locked into their position, aren't they? There's a few little movements that can happen here and there, but near enough everyone's sort of gearing up to their playoff matchup.
Yeah, and even the ones that aren't locked in, a lot of them can only go up down a couple of places, for example. So they're kind of just still resting players almost before the last game, just in case they need to win if they want to avoid like an opponent. But whilst there was still 3 or 4 games left, it was the ideal time for even those teams. So we've seen a lot of people rest their stars or rest a couple of their stars, which is not really a surprise in the modern day NBA. A little bit more news. So the Magic are locked into the 8 seed and the Nets are locked into the 7. Me and Ben both got this wrong, actually. We both thought the Magic were gonna do okay, which they kind of did, to be fair. But we thought the Nets would maybe go 0-8 with that bubble Nets squad. But God, they've got some shocking wins that we're going to go on to talk about later. But it's fair play to the Nets, mate, for holding on to that 7 seed in the end. After me and you definitely doubted them.
Yeah, like I said the other day, I don't know if it is well done Nets, or what the hell are you thinking about, team that you've just been beaten by the Nets? I don't know if they. Yeah, it's a tricky one because like they're knocking off these big teams with this lineup. Why bother bringing back your stars now? Put this squad out every week.
I think most Nets fans would definitely disagree with that, but I've definitely seen a lot online about them wanting to give all these youngsters a try for next season, though, and not just go big in free agency and try and get a whole load of new players to add to the roster. They almost want to try and go with as many of these guys as they can, which I think is quite nice, to be honest. Developing your young players, taking people off Crawford off the street. I think they've clearly got a good team chemistry.
Yeah, they potentially, everybody playing like this, potentially got a really sort of deep squad for next season on the way. So, keep developing it. Definitely.
Yeah, and finally a little bit on the Nets. Shams reported today that they're going to can do an in-depth search for a new head coach as of this summer, or won't be this summer, I guess, with this basketball, but it'll be the gap in between the playoffs and the new season. Just a couple of names to throw at you, Ben. Their current head coach, Jackie Vaughan, will be a significant candidate to retain the job, the article states, but also here are some external candidates. We've got the Lakers assistant, Jason Kidd, the 76ers assistant, Ime Udoka, which I think I've said right. Very young coach, apparently helped a lot with their G League team last year, which a lot of teams are kind of doing that mold now, aren't they, with younger coaches. And we have the Clippers assistant, Ty Lue, a very fond friend of yours. And former Rockets and Knicks coach who gets linked to every job, Jeff Van Gundy. Any names jump out there for good or bad reasons?
They can't go back to Jason Kidd, can they? After his first tenure there, most
different
famous
roster, but same owner.
Most famous moment: asking a player to bump him so he spills his drink on purpose to get a sort of free timeout. There's a real good bunch in there. I guess I wonder if Ty Lue would be favourite again for this position, like he was for the Lakers, just because he knows Kyrie, he knows how to manage him. He's managed teams with superstars before, so he's got that pedigree. So I'd imagine he'd be front runner. The reason he didn't end up taking the Lakers job is because they wouldn't give him enough money. So if the Nets are going to front up, I feel like that's going to be your front option.
The Nets are not normally afraid of doing that either, to be honest, throwing big money at things that they either need or don't need. The article also states that other candidates will emerge, but they're going to wait to see how people's job statuses are over the next few weeks of the playoffs. So we could have head coaches lose their job, couldn't we, in certain scenarios? Maybe, we think this team should get to the final of the East or the West, then they don't. Could you then be in jeopardy? Or could you go and try and pinch a good coach from somewhere else? That's another option, isn't it? But their clear message is they want a head coach that really fits this roster and fits their 2 stars. So we'll have to wait and see with that one. Anyone can coach KD, though, because I've told you he's the best player in the world. So
yes. I'm sure so many people have told you how wrong you are.
A couple of people. KD hasn't, though, so I'm happy with that. A little bit more about some news then. So the Magic and Bucks and the sorry, I've read that wrong. The Celtics are locked into the 3rd seed now as well, which means we now know a couple of playoff games already, which is the Magic v the Bucks and the Nets v the Raptors. Not two of the most exciting ties there, Ben, but we kind of thought 1v8 and 2v7 in the East was going to be a wash, no matter which way around it finished.
Yeah. The most entertaining out of those two is going to be Bucks Magic. Magic might be able to steal one or maybe even 2 if they can score like they have been doing. And the Bucks sort of look as wounded as they have been over the past couple of games, but I think come playoff time when teams are taking it all seriously, the Brooklyn Nets are getting swept.
You think?
Yeah.
You don't think the bubble Nets can steal a series 4-3 against the Raptors?
Nah, no chance.
What's more likely, that or you being able to get out of your pool later on when you've had a few beers?
Well, that's a close call, actually.
All right, speaking of Ben's famous bubble pool, we're going to find out what games he's been watching in the pool. So have you got any recent games that you've watched, mate? Any big games from the last few days that you want to discuss?
Well, we all know the pool game was a Blazers Clippers big game. So let's start with the Blazers game to chat about, shall we?
Okay, cool. Yeah, I did enjoy that game, to be fair. Absolutely insane finish. Blazers really threw it away with the Clippers basically resting all their players.
Yeah, I've never seen Dame miss 2 free throws like that before, just in clutch crunch time, and he just absolutely toilets them. And then I feel like he rushed into his 3. I know he was wanting to jack it up in case he misses, and then they've got time to maybe get the rebound and go again. But for me, the way he stepped back into it, he was off balance. He wasn't quite ready. I feel like he could have got himself a better shot. I don't know how you saw it.
Yeah, potentially. I felt he was quite tired, actually, throughout the whole that second half, because obviously they've been playing, we've mentioned this so many times now, but they've been playing a really short rotation. And there's been 2 games where he's played the whole second half. Not that game, but 2 games beforehand. So, yeah, I just think he was a bit tired, to be honest. I think it all just played into his head. Yeah, and I probably agree he did rush that final shot. But he's just a sort of player when he sees an opportunity, no matter what, he's just going to go for it, isn't he? But I just don't think his legs were under him because he was so tired. I think that's why he almost looked a bit more off balance. One of the analysts for, I think it was The Athletic, said that him missing 2 free throws in a row with his 90% career free throw percentage was basically 0.8% chance that would ever happen. Obviously, It did happen. So that's crazy. Big win for the Clippers. They wanted to lose, basically, to screw the Lakers over. But the players that finish that game will get a lot of confidence. People like Shamet and JaMychal Green going into the playoffs. But
did you see the comments afterwards?
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, we should discuss that. I did see the comments. It was a knockout win for Dame Lillard there for me with the way he pied off Paul George on Instagram.
And he didn't even bother talking about Pat Bev because he's not worth talking about.
No, and everyone knows Pat Bev's a bit of a drawer. He's a defensive player. He always does that. But I think it was as soon as someone like Paul George, who changes teams all the time, started clapping back, I think Dame kind of thought, hang on, I sent you home last year. Let's not you get all confident. I also saw afterwards, no, I didn't see this, sorry. I listened to a podcast and they mentioned the fact that after that comment, Paul George put on his Instagram stories, the reasons like why he's moved teams and bounced are because of injuries, not because of his own fault. And everyone was like, okay, so now you're blaming injuries for you losing an argument with Dame Lillard. Like, it's completely irrelevant. He was like, oh yeah, I've had so many bad injuries. And everyone was kind of like, well, you have had bad injuries, but what has that got to do with this point at all? And we both listened to a different podcast, and I heard them talking quite a lot about his playoff record. And it was quite funny that actual Paul George's playoff record was a lot worse than I thought in terms of like, I think there was 4 or 5 games where he's like 0 from 6 in the last 4 minutes of playoff games. I think he's never won a game 7, stuff like that. So, yeah.
His peak time was with the Pacers was when he was going up against LeBron and the Heatles down in Miami, and those were some great series. But they were never going to beat them in a 7-game series.
No, and they were a team as well that had a lot of scorers, weren't they? So it wasn't the same as now. You know, a team like basically whoever Dame Lillard plays, he's going to be obviously the guy they try and stop. And Paul George was almost comparing himself to that. And you're like, well, when you're on the Pacers, it was much more for group effort, great coaching, and obviously Paul George was famous for his defense, wasn't he? They were a very defensive team. But yeah, I definitely think they were. I don't mind Pat Beverley. I find him funny, but I definitely give the win to Dame on that one.
100%.
Whilst we're talking about the Blazers, then we'll carry on with another one of the games. The day after, they played the 76ers, so it was their only back-to-back of the bubble. They managed to get a bounce-back win. A huge 51-point game from Dame after struggling in the clutch, which is very, very Dame Lillard. Like, after all those arguments and discussions, he just comes out the next day, shoots the lights out, gets to the rim, nearly made every free throw, I believe. I think he missed 1 free throw all game. And it basically put the Blazers 1 win away from being in the playing games. Obviously, they want the 8th seed. We all know that. But they're 1 win away just from being in the dance completely. So before the bubble, if you'd have asked them, with 2 games to go, do you want 1 win just to get into the playing game, they'd have bitten your hand off, wouldn't they?
Yeah, 100%. Yeah, they want this bad. And I think they deserve it, really. It
was a fun game again, wasn't it?
Yeah, really, really fun. It's interesting to see as well how the 76ers are adjusting given no Ben Simmons, So starting to insert Al Horford in at the power forward position. So they're sticking with the sort of the size in their roster.
He looked good as well for once for them. Looked back to his old self, playing a role that's a bit more familiar. But I guess we should mention the big news from that game, Ben, about Joel Embiid.
Yes, I don't think it's a severe injury. He just sort of tweaked his ankle, didn't he? Hobbled off court.
Yeah, he missed that game. I think he's missing the next one for sure. And probably, if we're honest, he's probably not going to appear again until the playoffs, we can imagine, just as a safety precaution.
No, they won't play until the playoffs now. They'll slide Horford into the centre now, which, again, will be a very interesting to see, because Al Horford's really good with his passing, and when he's on form, he can sort of screen and roll and flare out and shoot. Josh Richardson was on fire. If he can maintain that.
Yeah, where's he been the whole bubble until that game? Nothing.
Yeah, he just hit absolutely everything, didn't he?
Yeah, they actually impressed me. Obviously, I watched that whole game because we've mentioned a million times, but we're almost like a secret Blazers fan club at the moment until the playoffs start, at least. And yeah, they did very well. One player that disappointed me again was Tobias Harris, though. But Josh Richardson was definitely a good sign for the 76ers, and I thought Milton did okay as well. And I thought Korkmaz was good on both ends of the floor.
Yeah, Matisse Thybulle as well was a real spark off the bench. I know he didn't do much that game, but defensively and athletically, he's great for them.
Oh, he's a very good defender, isn't he, for his age?
Yeah.
Very good defender. But yeah, what do you think about Tobias Harris then? I've always liked him. Back in the days, obviously, everyone knows I loved Melo. And when there was rumours that the first time when Melo signed that huge deal that he was going to go to the Rockets, the Knicks were looking at Tobias Harris as almost a replacement because he played very similar. And I think he did play very similar at a young age. But he really, I know, obviously, not everyone likes Melo, whatever. But I know Tobias hasn't got that offensive killer instinct to me. He doesn't look like he can. I know Melo didn't win a championship or anything, but it doesn't like he can lead a team like an offensive player like Melo can, you know?
No, he's not got that killer instinct, definitely. He needs people getting going around him before he gets brave and starts stepping into his shots and hitting them. They almost need a sort of cushioned lead, and then he has a really good game. But when it's a tight game, he's quiet. He's so quiet. Just doesn't quite live up to the money he's making for me.
Yeah, that's the thing. He's quiet for a good player for a start in general, and then when you actually take things like the contract into debate, then you're like, oh, wow, for that level as well. I mean, that level of pay is almost a different level of star, isn't it?
Yeah.
But the 76ers basically just did it just to almost keep the asset, and because obviously they can trade him if they need to in the future. But if they just let him walk with their salary cap situation, that they couldn't have signed anyone. But yeah, it's not looking great for them. The fact that Alex Burks really outplays you from the bench, and also he wasn't even one of their high. He got good minutes, but I think Alex Burks was like a 21, 22-minute guy in that game, and he outscored someone who played 34 minutes. Right. And obviously, Joel Embiid's gone out, so whether you think Josh Richardson's above him or not, Tobias Harris should be the main man when you have no Simmons and Embiid, but unfortunately, wasn't the case. No. Just another note in that game as well. Nurkic was really good again on both ends of the floor, which was quite impressive. He looks like he's getting his legs back under him defensively. And Carmelo dropped 20 points, so I'm always going to be happy with that.
Big Melo.
Big Nurk, Big Melo, dream team. Oh, and in that game as well, Melo did pass. I can't remember now. Past Paul Pierce to go 15th on the all-time NBA scoring list, and he's only 1,000 points off number 10. So if he plays a couple more years, he might get there. So that's a pretty big achievement in someone's life.
I'm sure Paul Pierce has got something to say about that. He'll probably come out with some sort of outrageous statement.
Yeah, I saw that McCollum and Melo did a live last night, and someone said, do you expect Paul Pierce and Perkins to come out and say anything about it? And Melo was kind of being polite, being like, nah, they respect me, I respect them, like, it's all good. And CJ McCollum was like, well, you did it in 300 minutes less than Pierce, so he can't say anything. So I was a bit like, yes, good one, CJ.
It did make me laugh when he came out and said he's better than D Wade. I just can't see it, Paul, I'm afraid.
No, Pierce, yeah. Good in a wheelchair.
Great in a wheelchair. Good moves.
Yeah, he's no D Wade, though. I'm not even the world's biggest D Wade fan, but yeah, he's definitely way better than Paul Pierce. Especially in terms of passing the ball. God, D Wade was a proper proper big game player in terms of that. Cool. So next on the list that I've got to talk about, Ben, was last night's Lakers and Nuggets game.
Yes.
Huge win for the Lakers after 3 straight losses, which kind of like on the podcast we've mentioned the Lakers a little bit, but on text we sometimes have been like, oh god, they're not looking good again tonight, etc. But the 3 losses in a row really kind of snuck past me. I thought they'd been like 1 win, 1 loss, 1 win, 1 loss, but when I saw they had 3 losses in a row, I was like, oh yeah, god, really bad bubble for them.
Yeah, it's added up. Their terrible offensive prowess has not done them well. You know, coming into the bubble, they had all that the chemistry and everything was clicking, everything was churning, and then they've had that time off. And I think it's just taken this long for people to get their shots. The other thing they're struggling with as well is their rotation. They're not 100% on who's going to get what minutes, which lineup they want in the clutch. They know it's going to be LeBron and AD. And then who do you put around that? After last night, you're slotting Kuz in. What a game he had. He hit the game sort of winning 3. He had some
that was a huge shot, wasn't it?
Big bully plays as well. He wasn't just sort of driving in and pulling up a mid-range. He was driving hard. He was knocking players over. He was involved in everything. Danny Green got going a little bit, went round, had that sort of screen and flare to the 3-point line and managed to hit a sort of 3 when they needed it. And he's also good defensively. They were looking more like themselves last night. My only grumble would be the Denver team that they were playing was essentially their bench players when it got sort of to the 4th.
They rested people for some minutes, didn't they? Because they've been playing big minutes with their overtimes all throughout the bubble.
I would expect usually the Lakers to hammer this Nuggets team. However, I think a real game changer for the Nuggets at the moment is Michael Porter Jr.
We spoke about him last time, didn't we?
Yeah.
He's only improved and since then it almost carried on what everyone thought could be like a flash in the pan, but he's looking very consistent.
Yeah, 15, 4 and 1 in 24 minutes for a young player. He's versatile as well. 100% from the free throw line. 100% from field goal percentage, sorry. Just unreal.
Yeah, very impressive. Yeah, very impressive. He's really going to get some minutes, I think, now. I think he's really forced his way in because he's been out of the team all year almost. He's really forced his way into that playoff rotation.
Yeah, he's that starting small forward for sure.
Well, you think he'll end up starting as well, do you, not being off the bench?
I think he needs to start. He needs to get into his shots early. He needs to play more minutes. I don't think the Nuggets can afford to bring someone off the bench kind of thing. I think they need to get the best lineup out there and then rotate from there.
Yeah, maybe swap him, put Will Barton on the bench long term then, and keep Porter in the lineup, you think?
Yeah, I would go with that.
Cool. Well, that loss for the Nuggets didn't quite sew it up, but it looks more than likely that they're going to finish the 3 seed. They'd need to win. I think they've got 2 left. They need to win their 2, and obviously one of them's against the Clippers, and then hope the Clippers lose their other. And I think then they could do it, but I don't know if that goes down to tiebreaker then. But yeah, that was a huge loss in terms of trying to get that 2 seed. But I don't really know how much they care about that, to be honest. Everyone knows they're a big home court advantage team with the altitude in Denver, so it's almost just like, well, we haven't got that, so we don't want to risk any more injuries and play people more than we need to. So we'll just take the 3 or 2 seed, whatever comes to us. I don't know if they care as much as maybe other teams do, like the Clippers.
And if things stay as they are, that's a matchup that I'd want to see. So they'd end up playing the Jazz. So sort of a Gobert versus Jokic matchup.
Is that how it falls at the moment, is it?
Yeah. Utah in 6th. So.
Cool. Yeah, that could be a good series. Better than seeing Houston Jazz for the 3rd year in a row. I would like to see.
Yeah, I don't want to see that again.
Yeah, a little bit different. It's always good. Last bit on this game, even though it was actually before this game, Mr. LeBron James, I believe the comments from the night before when they lost, or 2 nights before when they lost,
my man,
says they're struggling playing without any fans, and that for his shooting woes are because there's a lot of black spots and the floor's quite dark. What do you think about that, Ben?
initially I was thinking about it and like, yeah, all right, excuses, just get on with it. You know, you're LeBron James. You got going last night. Just find that again, and I'm sure he will come playoff. He'll find his shot.
Yeah, he had a good. I think he's 5 from 11 again last night, so he's back on track a bit with his outside shot.
In terms of the black spots and stuff, just get over it. Everybody's got to deal with it.
If TJ Warren can drop 50 bombs, LeBron James can.
You should be all right. The other side of it, though, I was thinking in terms of the crowd, I kind of get it because he is the most watched player probably ever. You think about he was selling out arenas from 17. So he's not played a proper basketball game without a sold out arena. So it must be kind of weird.
Yeah.
I'm not saying it's not an excuse, but it must be weird for him.
Yeah, it would be weird. Yeah, I was just like, listen, when you think about it, they were like, yeah, but if they're the two reasons why you're struggling, then if you look at how many reasons should be above that, you know, like, oh, we haven't got our rotations, our guards are shooting poorly, J.R. Smith looks off it, Davis has been in and out with injury. There's so many more reasons what you could like contribute to, isn't there?
And that's I think another reason why he's gone along those lines. He's trying to deflect it from the rest of his team, trying to take the pressure off them by making a comment like this, so it all comes back onto him. So now we're talking about LeBron says this rather than Davis has been rubbish lately, and like you said, JR's been in and out and those kind of things, and it gives them time to go behind the scenes and sort out the actual problems rather than while the media's banging on about black spots and crowds.
Yeah, definitely. I did listen to a funny segment on the Bill Simmons podcast where they were debating what was more annoying, this comment or the time when he came out with the fake cast on after they lost to the Warriors, and they did both decide that the fake cast was worse than this. So this is not the most annoying thing he's ever done.
The other thing I found, I heard someone talking about that was funny about this match is Paul Millsap. So Paul Millsap obviously was part of the Atlanta Hawks team when LeBron was in Cleveland, and the Atlanta Hawks would sort of win the league, win the East every year. And Paul Millsap is 8-0 or 0-8 versus LeBron in the playoffs. And Frank Vogel apparently, so that play they used for Kyle Kuzma to win the game, that is a play he stole from Budenholzer that he drew up for Kyle Korver. So
nice.
They won the game against Millsap with a play so Millsap would have been, or Horford would have been the Davis part in that one. Just a little bit of a kick in the teeth.
That is a kick in the teeth, yeah. And also Kyle Korver got elbowed in the teeth last night, so it all goes full circle. But yeah, no, that was definitely a good shot. We should give props to Kuz. Because I don't really rate him as highly as others. But it's kind of hot and cold, isn't it? A lot of people either love him or a lot of people don't like him. But that was a hell of a shot. And if he can hit 3-pointers in big moments, then, like you said earlier, he will be the third person that probably fourth, to be honest, with Danny Green, that gets that guaranteed clutch moments at the end of games.
That's his problem, isn't it? It's consistency. And I know he's still young, but he needs that 15 to 20 points a night. He can't go 20 points tonight, 5 tomorrow, 20 points a night after, 2 games with 10. He needs to be contributing regularly and sort of a rough, similar amount.
Yeah, that is the problem with him, to be fair. Almost the problem with their team as well. They're always trying to figure out who's going to play when, and a lot of people do believe that even in the playoffs, they're just going to do it on a night-to-night basis and have to just adjust as they go, which is quite rare for a playoff team who wants to win it all, but not that rare for a LeBron team because the amount of obviously money and time that gets spent on the main stars, the rest of the guys kind of have to fill in around, don't they, as and when.
Yeah.
All right, cool. Well, we'll go on to talking again. Well, we'll go talk about another LA team now, actually. Someone that Ben probably got a few words to say on. This is the Clippers versus Nets game. I didn't watch this game in full because it was on so late, and I thought the Clippers were gonna win it, which would have guaranteed them to play the Mavs, and I'd have been annoyed. So I decided not to watch it. But there was a shock Nets win again, Ben. They've beaten the Bucks and the Clippers now.
It's ridiculous. Because I just don't understand. They went in with a good squad. Kawhi plays 36 minutes. Shamit's been playing well, but he had a shocker in this. Zubac's been playing well, but they just played awfully. Lou Williams played well off the bench. The play we've seen lately from the Clippers has really shaken my faith in them going all the way. Because even with decent squads out, they have looked woeful at times. Not just offensively, but defensively, which is what the team is built around.
129 against this Nets team is not good.
No, exactly it. When the Nets are putting 120 plus on you, and you're meant to be one of the best defensive teams in the league, you've got a real problem.
Garrett Temple and Tyler Johnson basically scoring 20 against you is not ideal.
No,
not ideal. We've shared privately, haven't we, that worries about all three of these top three seeds. If you're going to say the Clippers, obviously are number 3 in the NBA behind the other two. They've just looked very inconsistent. They've looked like, well, if I'm honest, all three have, not so much the Bucks, but the other two have looked a lot worse defensively than we thought, I think. The Bucks have looked worse offensively. And then at times, like we said, the Lakers and Clippers have also looked bad offensively. There's very strange, isn't it, that they're all performing not poor. They're not all performing poorly all the time, but it's very inconsistent. That's a key word, I think, for those three teams at the moment. Whether that's just after winning so many games in the pre-bubble regular season, and this has just caught them a bit off guard, I'm not sure, but it could lead to a very exciting playoffs.
That's what my thinking is leading me to. It's getting to a point where it doesn't really matter for these three. So are they easing off the gas pedal a bit? Are they just sort of phoning games in, really? Because the whole point now is just to perform in the playoffs. And if they are doing that, why are you playing Kawhi Leonard 38 minutes against the Nets?
Yeah, it's that pointless when he rests in. Yeah, when they rest him in key games.
The biggest advocate for resting Kawhi Leonard, and you're playing him 38 minutes. They need to make a decision. Are they resting or are they going for wins? Because otherwise, you're putting Kawhi Leonard in for 38 minutes, and at any point in that extended period of time, he could injure himself.
Yeah, I agree. And I think those three as a topic, a top three, really, really shines a light on the fact that the Raptors could be a surprise team here, because they're basically the consensus 4 seed, I would assume, in the NBA, unless you're a Rockets fan or Celtics fan. And they've just looked so much more consistent. I know they still haven't obviously won every game, but the games they don't win, it's like, the shots haven't quite fallen. There's no effort issues. There's no rotation issues. There's no game plan issues that are as obvious. And they all just look exactly like they know what they're doing. I think obviously yeah, you go for it.
I was going to say, I know we're not really talking about the Raptors here, but you look at the sort of the teams they've been putting out and the deep rotations they've been going through lately. They play like that, from getting contributions from everybody like that in the playoffs. There's no reason why they couldn't go have a real deep playoff run, and if not, even come out of the West. They beat the Bucks with Pascal, Norm. Their starting 5 playing about 25 minutes, if that. And
yeah, that's kind of the tactic nurses use sometimes, isn't it? Rather than complete rest, he's reduced minutes to try and keep people on the floor as well at the start.
That was the other one, because Kyle Lowry didn't even play, and they still, they beat the Bucks by 8 points.
Yeah, definitely. They're looking like there's a little bit of a debate going on in the group chat on the NBA UK fans today, but a surprise package might be the wrong word, because obviously since January they've actually got the best. If you include the bubble now, they've got the best record in the NBA since January. They're the reigning champion, so obviously when you say under the radar, people might think that's a false statement, but it kind of is a true statement. A lot of people don't talk about them as a true contender. And I just think they've shown that they're going to give it a real good go, at least, and they're going to be one of the hardest teams to beat in the playoffs.
Yeah.
I just think their only issue is, but whether this comes to the fore or not, you don't know. If Siakam hasn't always proved himself to be enough to be the true star of a team.
No.
And we all know Lowry's really hit one game and then really missed the other offensively. He always gives effort, always good on the defensive end, but he has one good game offensively, one bad game. So if him and Siakam have a bad game at the same time, that's when a team like that struggles, because even if the Clippers are playing poorly, Lakers are playing poorly, they know that AD, Kawhi, George, they could drop 40. And I think sometimes that could be the Raptors' downfall, but the more they blood these bench players and they get their extra guards the ball, and people like Van Vliet get more shots, I think it just gives them confidence going into the postseason, I would say.
It helps, in my opinion, that they have the best coach in the league as well.
Yeah, probably. Yeah, he's probably the best coach for me as well. Suns fans disagree. Monty Williams 5-0 in the bubble, but the poo-poo Suns, as Ben called them last time, very offensive. That leads us on to talking about the mighty Suns. The last game we're going to do a little recap. Well, I think it's the last game, unless Ben's got another.
Let's go.
The Suns versus Thunder. So not as an exciting game as you'd want at this stage, because OKC did sit pretty much everyone. But I found it very funny that CP3 made sure that he played, and he played good minutes. Yeah, like someone who has a lot of hamstring and groin injuries for Houston in the playoffs over the last couple of years. Clearly, he's wanted to be involved when everyone else was on the bench, which I just found very typical Chris Paul. So it wasn't an impressive win in terms of who they played, but to get there 6-0 in the bubble against the Thunder, I think they were down by about 9 points as well at one point in the second quarter. The Suns were, and they rallied back from that. And Devin Booker was huge again, Ben.
Yeah, he's just an offensive monster, isn't he? Really.
Shooting from everywhere at the moment.
How do you feel, just before we go on to talk about the game a bit more, about Draymond's comments on Devin Booker? Do you think there is a feasible future with the Suns? I know this 6-0 might tint it slightly. Or do you think if you are Devin Booker, you're looking around the league going, please trade me?
He doesn't want to be at the Suns. There's a lot of rumours last year they didn't want to stay. And he'll probably never win a championship there, if he's probably brutally honestly, because they're not even well run. That's the issue. It's not a case they've just tanked. Like the amount of bad decisions they've made with coaching staff, etc. They've been really poorly run. Obviously, Monty Williams has got them going from a coaching point now, but like you couldn't be 1,000,000% sure that in 6 months they don't randomly fire Monty Williams because he loses 5 games in a row. That's just the sort of the way they're run. They're almost, a lot of people think they're very similar to the Knicks now in terms of the ownership. He's very erratic. So in terms of the comments, I just thought it was funny. I think it's very harsh for the NBA to let a star player go on TNT, which is basically a talk show, and not expect there to be discussion of other players. But obviously, Draymond did make the joke when they said he was hampering, and he said maybe, which I found quite funny. But yeah, no, I think I can't see him finish. I can't see many players finishing their career of who they get drafted by in the modern day NBA. And I'd say Booker's probably one on the top of that list. And just before we go on, like discuss the game, something I forgot to mention earlier is that the Knicks hired a new assistant coach today, Kenny Payne. He's from
T-Pain.
Yeah, T-Pain. Yeah.
Let's go full court offense.
He's from Kentucky in college basketball, and this is a big hire and relates to Booker just because the new GM and the new coaches around the Knicks are very Kentucky based. And now they've finally managed to get the head assistant away from Calipari, who said he would never leave college to go to the NBA, and he's got a very, very close relationship with Devin Booker and Karl Anthony Towns. So a lot of people do think that the Knicks are going to make a run at Devin Booker when they can and try and make him their new star.
Leave Russell on his own in Minnesota crying.
Well, that would be a long time down the road, wouldn't it, because of the contract? But apparently Booker's the one they want. And allegedly, any ex-Kentucky player who's been coached by Calipari, that they're tempted to take a run at, even the smaller one, because they know the players. A lot of these coaches have worked with them. So, yeah, I found that very interesting. What about you? What do you think about potentially Booker staying for Phoenix forever, leaving Phoenix, getting traded to the Warriors, getting traded or signing for the Knicks? What do you think about all that?
For me, if I'm Devin, after this, I know it's only 6 games, but after this sort of end to the season, missing 2 of their best players as well, I would give it another season or another half a season, see where they are at Christmas, or well, depending on when the league starts, see where they are halfway down the line.
In March.
If they're in a similar place to where they are this season and he's putting up ridiculous numbers and they're still losing games, I think it's time to look elsewhere. I know the Suns fans are going to hate that because, they've already had a bashing from Draymond, but it's true. Why would he want to stick around with a franchise where he is a superstar and he's still getting no wins under his belt? Like they could go 8-0 in this bubble and still not make the playoffs. That's the kind of hole that they're trying to climb out of as a team.
Yeah, and this 6-0 record is the only 6 winning streak he's ever had in his career. After playing with the Suns, which is crazy. And he's never won more than 40 games until this year either.
Yeah, the Suns' last 6-game winning streak was 2014 when they had Isaiah Thomas, Goran Dragic, and Eric Bledsoe.
Yeah, the triple-headed monster in the guard position. A little bit more on Booker, though, he's obviously recently signed that big deal. So if there are any team that wants him, they're obviously going to have to trade him. But he is a unrestricted free agent in 2024, which is the same year as Karl Anthony Towns. Just so you know.
Convenient.
And also, though, I don't think the Warriors would want to sign him, but we mentioned this before, but with their trade exception and the Andrew Wiggins contract, they can basically sign anyone they want in a trade up to $40 million a year. And there's only like 2 players that are on more than $40 million, so anyone is up for grabs for them. So wow. I can see why the league at least said to Draymond, well, it's not completely unrealistic that you would ever sign Devin Booker, so we probably should fine you because it just looks bad if we don't. So I do understand. Yeah, but he was actually really good on TNT as a side note. He'll definitely be a TV guy in the future.
Yeah, definitely. Very impressed.
But yeah, back to the Suns Thunder game. Huge win for the Suns. Obviously keeps them in the fight. I think me and Ben probably want a Suns Blazers 8-9 matchup.
Yes.
And the Suns had to win this, didn't they, just to stay in that mix? So yeah, big win.
Is it, again, like I've been saying with the Nets, is it a big win or is it the other team were resting lots of players? So
still a big win.
It's a big win in terms of keeping them in the race for the playoffs, 100%.
Yeah, and like I said, they haven't had a 6-0 run since when, so it's like it's just getting 6 games. Like it's just good enough, You see some of these teams that should beat teams. Like the Suns should beat the Thunder, but we all thought the Clippers should beat the Nets. Yeah. And if you look at the Suns team, even though you think they should beat the Thunder, they're way, way, way below a team like the Clippers. So them winning a game is a lot harder than them actually winning a game. So full props to them, I think. What do you think about DeAndre Ayton? Did you hear that story?
Yeah, so he went on a podcast with Woj talking about how he's matured and he's a lot better now and he's
since his suspension, person. I think, wasn't it?
And then he didn't put his corona test in his diary, so he missed it. So he then had to have it just before the game and ended up missing the majority of the first quarter. He did turn up partway through it and got on the bike and then got on in the second. But, oh, come on, man. You've shot yourself in the foot there. The league had turned and thought, oh, yeah, maybe he has matured a bit. And then you literally, as you say it, you do something like that. It's just like, oh, come on.
Yeah, it's crazy. Quite almost funny as well. Not funny, but just made me laugh seeing him turn up late and like jump straight on the bike to get his legs warm. And he hasn't had a good warm-up. And this was his worst game in the bubble as well. So it clearly obviously did affect him because it was just such like a random like rat race to try and get himself into the game. And just how bad would he have felt if, I know obviously he didn't know, but if the Thunder would have played a few more guys and by the time he got into the game, the lead was so big or his performance was so poor that they couldn't quite win the game and they lost their chance at the playoffs and their winning streak because he couldn't put a test in his diary. I think he's a very lucky man that they managed to pull out the win.
Yeah, it'll be a huge negative spin on him. He'd be under a lot of scrutiny and a lot of pressure if they hadn't won that game, 100%. And I think,
especially after the reason why he missed the games at the start of the season. It's not wouldn't it look good to end your year with that issue and then finish the year with this issue? It could have looked bad for him.
yeah, and I think the Suns would have been in seriously like a lot more trouble if OKC had been playing sort of your Steven Adams and stuff, especially down inside, without someone like Ayton there, sort of a physical body blocking shots and stuff. I think they would have been in real trouble. But they pulled it out. They got the win. So fair play, Suns. 2 to go.
Yeah, 2 to go. Right. Speaking of 2 to go, let's talk about the best upcoming games. Yeah, well, tonight, we've got obviously a few more days left before the season finishes. Friday's the last games before the playing game. But tonight, Ben, is the night. All of the teams involved with that playing situation, which is kind of the only thing really, really important, still have to play for. Well, let's start with the first game. Let's go in chronological order, easy for me to say. 7 p.m. tonight, as always, on Sky Sports, first game. We've got the Rockets versus the Spurs. Absolute huge game. Like we said earlier, the Spurs and the Suns basically have to win all their games, so including tonight. What are your thoughts on this Rockets-Spurs matchup?
It's a good matchup for Houston. Spurs are a small team at the moment, and they've obviously got the injuries. I think Houston could potentially obliterate them. It doesn't look good for the Spurs for me.
It's hard to know with these games who's going to play, isn't it? But you have to almost try and think about it logically and think that Houston haven't quite got their seed locked in, so they could still need a win. They've got one more game after this where they could then rest players. But yeah, the Spurs have done really well at winning close games in the bubble, but their defense has sucked. And if your defense sucks against Houston, you can concede 130 quite comfortably.
It's tricky because if you're Houston at the moment, I really want to see this Houston OKC matchup. Who, as Houston, do you want to try and stay in this fourth? I guess so. You don't really want to drop to fifth. The only issue is that staying in fourth is that the Jazz creep up to that fifth position and you end up playing them again, or the Mavericks.
I think they'd rather play the Jazz, wouldn't you, though, if they could choose?
Yeah, of course they would, yeah. So in that case, well, I guess for Houston, they want to win, so, and then hope the Jazz get a win. So I think they're going to go for it in this one.
Yeah, I think they're more likely to rest in the second game of the week to try and get a bit of rest nearer to the actual playoffs starting. All right, cool. Well, if they did lose, that would put the mighty Spurs off their long playoff run. And then let's go to the other team chasing down those teams in 8 and 9. We've got the Suns, the mighty poo-poo Suns.
Just before we go on to the Suns, just a quick mention, just in case we get angry messages. The Nets and the Magic are playing at 6, but no one cares.
Yeah, I'm only talking about the important games, so that game is not on the radar. But you can probably also watch it on Sky Sports. You can. So yeah, 9:30 tonight. This one's not on Sky, funny enough. This is on League Pass only for anyone who wants to watch it. This is the Suns versus the 76ers. And Ben, I am feeling a big Suns win here. I think they're going 7-0 tonight. What do you think?
I'm with you. I think without
we got our Suns jerseys on,
76 is going to be resting. I think they're going to start resting players now. So
apparently Tobias Harris might not play as well.
They're going to have a deeper rotation. Unless one of their bench players does something crazy, I think the Suns are going 7.
Taking it down to the last day. Cool. Then 10 p.m. This one is on Sky Sports. We've got the Celtics versus the Grizz. Obviously, the Grizz need a win. It won't be guaranteed the 8 seed, I don't think. But if, like we said before, I think if the Grizz or Blazers win one game, it pretty much makes it impossible because the Grizzlies have the tiebreaker over everyone, and the Blazers are obviously game ahead of the other two teams. So, what are your thoughts on Celtics Grizz? We know the Celtics are locked into the 3 seed, but historically, the the coach does not like to rest players.
I think, although he won't rest players, I think he'll tone down the minutes, get a bigger rotation for the Boston Celtics as well.
Ooh, sounds like you're going Grizz win.
They've got nothing to play for really at the moment, have they? Apart from maybe getting some sets under their belt. I'm going to go on the side of the Grizz there.
Oh, no. You're stitching the Suns up. I'm going with the Grizz win. I think this game is going to put the pressure right back on for the last game, which is, to be honest, we all kind of want it to go to the last night because it'll be much more entertaining. So I think the Celtics are actually going to win quite comfortably. I think the line is 5 points, so that Celtics are 5-point favourites. And I think they will beat that and probably win by more than 5. I'm going to go Celtics in a double-digit win. Jason Tatum shooting from everywhere. Now I will get a notification in about an hour saying he's being rested, when that will annoy me. But anyway, so the last game that matters for this 8-9 seed matchup tonight is the last game of the evening, also on Sky Sports. I feel like we should get Sky Sports as a sponsor.
Email.
Blazers versus the Mavs. Now, this is going to be a bit of a conundrum for me because I got work tomorrow morning. It's a late game. But also, the Blazers are the team of the pod at the moment, and the Mavs are my team. So, very difficult. I also swear, to go off topic, I did the maths right, and the Mavs could not finish above 7. However, I've listened to 3 other podcasts that indicate they can finish above 7. So I'm slightly confused. I'm not sure. Maybe I'm working out the winning percentage the same way that they're going to do it after the bubble. Maybe they're doing some sort of algorithm to do with home and away. I don't know, but everyone keeps telling me they can get to the 6 or 5, and I'm like, they're locked in at 7. So, but apparently they're not. So I'm going to cheer on the Mavs.
Yeah, it looks like when you just look at it, they're 43-30, Jazz 43-28. With 2 games left, I don't know if they can go up to 5th because they're 43-27. So even if they, well, yeah, maybe, I don't know. I think they, well, you're the Mouse fan of the pod. Are they going to be wanting to get up the ladder any more than they are? Get out the way of the Clippers, try and get up one more?
Clippers are literally the worst team for the Mavs to play. They've got loads of wing defenders. Wings are the people that guard Luka. They never, ever get Luka guarded by a point guard, even though he basically plays point guard. He's always guarded by a wing. And they've got the best 2 defensive wings in the NBA. So that's a bit of a struggle. Porzingis always does quite well against them. But yeah, I just think
they're a small team, aren't they? Really?
Yeah, they are. Yeah, and when they bring some of their backup bigs on, it becomes quite easy for KP to score. But the issue is on the other end. The Mavs have obviously lost Dwight Powell. Boban doesn't play that much, so Porzingis is now playing like a center. And when they played the other day, Zubac just absolutely dominated on his end as well. So it didn't really matter that KP was scoring because he was giving up 18 points on the other end.
Yeah.
So, yeah, I think they're probably the worst. If I'm honest, I say they're the worst matchup for everyone because they've probably got 11 players that would but would play in everyone else's team in terms of playoff minutes. But they're only going to probably play 9 guys most of the time. That's how deep they are. So, yeah, I think they're a struggle. And the issue with the Mavs is we've said so many times that they have the best offense in terms of efficiency in the NBA. And I think it's actually in NBA history. But it's a very high 3-point% team. And it's also very poor in the clutch. The Clippers are very good in the clutch and very good at defending 3-point line. So I think they'll want to move up if they can. But against the Jazz yesterday, they rested pretty much all 3 of their main starters in terms of minutes because they knew the Jazz were going to rest players, and they still managed to sneak a cheeky win out against the Jazz. So now they've rested players already. I think there's more of a chance they might try and go for it tonight and just see if they can cause some havoc with 1 game to go.
Why not? So, or if they're going to put a good team out, then it's tricky. I'm still tempted to go with Portland, though.
Yeah, a lot of people would. Mavs are struggling at the end of games, and apart from obviously that Clippers game, which was a bit random, the Trailblazers have been immense, haven't they, in the 4th quarter?
Yeah.
So you're going Blazers, officially?
Yeah. Too many offensive weapons for the Mavs to deal with.
Yeah, and I can see Porzingis with his knee injury history still resting, even though I think Luka will play.
Yeah.
Maybe 40-point night for Melo.
Oh, dropping threes. That headband's going to get worn through.
Very true. And the last big game, before we move on to just doing a bit of a speed round, is Tuesday night. It's the Clippers versus not Tuesday night, sorry. Wednesday night. It's the Tuesday. Oh my god! It's the Clippers versus the Nuggets.
Tuesday,
the big game.
Yes.
Yeah, it's Tuesday versus the Nuggets. No, yeah, Clippers versus the Nuggets, and basically it's just a big game because the Clippers can finally, obviously, confirm that 2 seed which they desperately want. I think they would probably rather play the Mavs in a way, just because of their poorness on the defensive end. The Clippers can score what they want, like we said, against the Mavs. So they'll want that 2 seed, and obviously the 2 seed means they can avoid the Lakers for the last possible round. So that's a bit of a big game. And the Nuggets, like we said earlier, they've got a lot of injuries. Rotation's been a bit hit and miss. So I can't really see past the Clippers win, mate. But
I think Denver might just say, we'll settle in the 3. We'll just rest everyone and get us all healthy for the playoffs, and we'll just put more time into focusing on our footage and our film and our tactics for the playoffs. So, yeah, I think the Clippers are coming out of that.
Yeah, I agree. I think the Nuggets are actually the same as the Mavs. The Mavs really want to play the Nuggets, and I think the Nuggets probably don't want to play the Mavs. They'd much rather play the Thunder or Jazz.
Yeah.
So I think that they'll just be really happy just to sit in at that 3 seed and just no home court advantage anyway. So why risk extra injuries?
On home court advantage, I had a thought about this. I was going to mention it with the Lakers beating the Nuggets.
Yeah.
So I was listening to someone talk about what was it? Might have been when Frank Vogel came out and said, for being a number 1 seed, they're actually in the worst position, because not only do they maybe have to contend with like someone like Portland, who shouldn't be an 8th seed really, but they also find out who they're playing a day later than everybody else, because everybody's locked in and they're going to that Mega Bowl game. So everybody else has an extra day to prepare, whereas the Lakers don't.
He's actually wrong as well, though, because they have 2 days less to prepare, because the playing game could go 2 games, can't it?
Yeah.
I thought about this, because obviously he's almost banking on the 8 seed winning, because then it's only 1 game. But if the 9 seed managed to sneak the win, they'll find out 2 days later. And obviously you can't really risk it and be like, oh, I think we're going to play the Blazers, because if they did lose the first game and they were the 8 seed, then there would be another game. So yeah, you're right. They could have 2 days less to prepare than everyone else.
So here's what I think they should have done. Obviously it's too late now, but here's what I think they should have done to give home court advantage. Here we go. I've cracked the code for the top 4 teams. And they should have done it draft format. So if you come in the number 1 seed, you get first pick of who you play out of the bottom 4. So the Lakers could look down and go, I want to play Oklahoma City, for example. And then the Clippers get the next pick, Denver gets the next pick, and Houston gets whoever's left, which in theory will probably be a 4th, 5th matchup anyway.
Well, it probably would be Blazers, though, in this scenario.
Yeah, probably would be. But generally, what do you think of that?
Yeah, I heard Kevin O'Connor mention a similar one where they just said the first team in each conference could pick anyone they want to play as another option. And it would have added drama, wouldn't it? Because players would have felt offended that a team wanted to play them. So it would have really stuck up a bit of drama. But the thing is, I guess you'd have to delay the whole thing by a couple more days then, wouldn't you? Because you'd have to wait until the playing games are completely finished before you even started the draft. And obviously, then you'd need a day or 2 to prepare at least, or you wouldn't want to play the same day as the draft. So yeah, however, it might have delayed things.
That does, although it will delay things, it does make it fair in terms of preparation time for every single team.
Yeah, I agree, yeah. But I did hear the guys on the No Dunks basically say, you have played these teams 4 times a year. You should know your scouting report. And 1 day shouldn't matter. But I agree that it's weird to have no home court advantage and then have, even if it's a minuscule disadvantage, it's still a very slight disadvantage, isn't it?
Yeah. The only advantage they get, though, from it going 2 games is the team they're playing has played 2 extra games compared to them.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, and I do think obviously that Lakers will play last as well. So their advantage is they're going to get obviously after Friday they're going to get I think 4 days rest, and the other team could potentially play twice in 2 days and then only get 1 day rest.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think it's just the Lakers crying over nothing as per, to be honest, mate. But your idea would be a cool idea, but I think to get teams to vote on it would be hard because all the teams at the bottom of the conference in the middle would not want to risk. Obviously, they're guaranteed only to play each other like 4-5, 3-6. I don't think they would vote yes and risk. Do you know what I mean? Risk a first seed picking them out. If you're a team like the Jazz, you're like, oh yeah, we could get to the 4 seed, but then the Lakers could just say, oh yeah, we want to play the Jazz, and then you've worked hard to get to the 4 seed, and you have to play the Lakers anyway. I think it would have been hard, but I think it's a good idea. Still, there's no home court advantage at all, so it's better than that because we've spoken about our annoyance for the lack of home court advantage the whole way through, haven't we?
Yeah, it's been a common theme. But you know what those sort of lower teams that would have no choice in this decision could have done to sort of get themselves out of it? 1 more games.
1 more games. Trade Devin Booker to the Warriors to win more games.
Oh, I would hate to see that.
It wouldn't work anyway with Steph. Right, anyway, let's finish on Thursday night's games because that's the play-in night in terms of where we're going to know. So we'll do the same as last time. I'm only going to do it for Thursday because we're running on time a bit. I'll read you the games and you just tell me which game you're going to put on TV that night if you only pick one. Okay?
Well, potentially put on TV with you.
Yeah, potentially. That is the plan. Thursday night. Maybe we'll do a live little Twitter video whilst we're there.
Ooh,
who knows?
Damn, girl.
So these times are American, so I won't read these out. They've just announced the times as well, by the way. There was not confirmed until this morning. Now they've announced all the times. So
I've got British times if you want, I think.
Go on, then you can read them out.
Kings Lakers at 6:30 p.m.
Nice.
Wizards Celtics 5 p.m. However, could make my prediction come true there. 0-8 for the Wizards. Let's go. Potential big game at 9 p.m. or 2 potential big games at 9 p.m. The Bucks versus the Memphis Grizzlies and the Mavericks versus the Phoenix Suns.
How clever they put those 2 on at the same time.
Very convenient. 11:30 after that then, the Spurs versus the Jazz. 2 a.m. Portland versus the Brooklyn Nets. And joint 2 a.m. game because I think they thought it would be a similar situation, but it's not. New Orleans versus the Magic.
Yeah. I'd just like to point out as well, I've got my 9 seed wrong on the preview pod we did ages ago and the pod the end of last week. So I've been wrong twice. Who's going to finish in the 9 seed? So what game is standing out for you most there, Ben? I think, to be honest, it's got to be a double screen, hasn't it? It's got to be an iPad or a laptop open and then Mavs Suns on the telly.
Yeah, that Mavs Suns and Bucks Memphis those are the hot games at the moment.
We get another look at the Bucks bench as well, don't we? As well, to see if they can start producing a bit more offensively before the playoffs, which is a nice little added bonus.
And by our count as well, and our prediction, the Spurs will be out of the run by this point, and Portland might have locked up an 8 seed potentially.
Well, they'll be in, but I think they still might need to win. Well, yeah, it depends if the Grizzlies win that night. It could all be different, but just let me know, you put the Spurs out of it. I think the Spurs are going to beat the Rockets because I can't pick the Rockets to beat anyone because I don't like James Harden. We already know this, Ben.
Sorry, Spurs. I love you.
I think that what I find annoying about that is if the Trailblazers haven't sewn up the 8 seed and they have to win to get the 8, I'm going to have to stay up till ridiculous o'clock to watch them beat the Bubble Nets.
Bubble Nets.
Cool. All right. So, any quick prediction now? Have you changed your mind on who's going to finish where? You had Blazers in 8 and Suns in 9. Is that still the pick?
I'm sticking with it. I'm locking it in.
I'm switching mine to the... I'm going to be wrong 3 times. Let's go. Spurs are going to... No, they're not. Grizzlies are going to finish the 9th, and the Blazers are going to finish in the 8th spot. That's what I think now.
It'd be a travesty if Memphis go like 1-7 and still make it through.
I think they'll beat the Bucks, to be honest. I think because the coaches, like I said, are friends. I think the Bucks team's going to be a joke, and the Grizzlies going to steal some awful win. And I think that will get them in the 9. And I honestly just, if they play Luka, I just could see it being Luka v Booker. And if Luka turns it on that night, the Suns might struggle. And if Luka doesn't play, then if the Grizz win anyway, it doesn't matter for the Suns, does it? So we'll see. But hopefully we'll be watching that one together.
Ooh, hell yeah.
Cool. All right. Well, we're going to leave it there then. I think the plan is to record another pod Friday or Saturday once we know who the playing game is, because we're going to do a little review of Thursday's games and then obviously do a play-in game preview because we don't want to miss that.
Yeah.
So yeah, hopefully everyone enjoys tonight's games. There's some huge ones. And go follow us at @_Hardwood Hoops for updates, polls, opinions, photos of Ben in a pool.
Perfect. What more could you want?
Who knows? Right. We'll speak to you soon. See you later.
Speak soon.
Bye.